What's good, fam? Agent O here with another action figure review. And today I have the s.h.figuarts Avengers Infinity War Hulk. This is the Hulk version. I was really curious and pretty excited to get this guy because I had noticed just from the production photos about that they had changed some of the articulation and some of the engineering that went into building this figure and just the overall look. I was really digging it. It looked closer to what the character looks like in the movie, and that's why I was really highly motivated to get the hold of this guy. So yeah, this is the box art. As you can see, I do like this rendering they've got here of the Hulk. Looks pretty cool. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about box art and packaging. We're here to talk about the figure inside. So let us jump in it. And here he is, the Hulk, Infinity War Hulk. And let's just get the comparison part out of the way right away, with the aesthetics anyway. And as you can see, I've got him next to the Age of Ultron Hulk, and yeah, I mean, obviously, right off the bat, you can see, obviously, darker green skin tone. This was something a lot of people complained about with this version of the Hulk, and I get it. It wasn't that big of a deal to me. I was kind of okay with it because I dug everything else about it more than, and I was able to overlook the different in the aesthetic, but they nailed it with this guy. Nobody should complain about that anymore because he's very, very green. And I actually dig this guy more because he's got a better sculpt overall. This feels like it was more comic book inspired with the artistic license that they took with the sculpt of this guy, and this looks to be based more on it's like human proportions with some artistic licensing done to it, because they really tried to capture his body type that they had in the Avengers movies and everything from the MCU. When the Hulk appeared, they took a bit more of a anatomically correct approach as far as like what somebody would look like if they were this tall and this built, I guess, muscular wise. I do like the fact that, unlike the Age of Ultron Hulk, with this Hulk, they have sculpted texture, like skin texture, on his body, all across his whole body. I think that looks really cool, and it just adds a nice effect. It helps it look less like a plastic toy and more like something that something that's alive. The paint apps on his head look really nice on his face. I don't really think it looks a whole lot like Mark Ruffalo, like more like Mark Ruffalo inspired, and in some ways it kind of reminds me of the Ang Lee Hulk. Only the Ang Lee Hulk had more of a wider square jaw and more of a blocky head, and a bit more wider it seemed than this guy does. But it does have a little bit of an aspect to that, and I think they were trying to get some kind of look down for this Hulk, since they probably weren't able to get the likeness rights to Mark Ruffalo to the way, because that Hulk does look like Mark Ruffalo especially after Thor Ragnarok, and he started talking more and all that. But like I said earlier, I do like the change in the anatomy, as far as like the way the muscles are grouped and everything, and how they look. Like I said, this looks more like a comic book, highly stylized, and this looks stylized but based more on like actual anatomy, and that's what I like about it. I also do like that he had these uniforms with the the Avengers symbol on them. Had me thinking it was like something that he would wear underneath, and then when he hulks out and his rest of his clothes rip off, at least he has something to cover up his jewels and all that fun stuff. But since this is based on his appearance in Infinity War, he didn't have that uniform. He just had pants, and so And so, you know, it works. It's ripped. The pants are ripped. The folds look pretty good. You know, the detailing looks all right. I don't really have any complaints with the way his pants look and with the paint apps and everything that goes along with that. It serves its purpose. There's nothing really to write home about. You know, it kind of looks like a grayed out bluish purple or something. Like they weren't going to try and get it to look exactly bright purple, but they tried to get something close to it without it looking, you know, too garish. So I like it. Other than that, I don't really have any other complaints about the aesthetic look of this guy. I do want to talk about the articulation because there are some changes that they made that are for the better and some that kind of stayed the same. Starting off with the head, bring back Age of Ultron Hulk. The problem with the Age of Ultron Hulk was he had no neck. As you can see, this version has a neck. That was one of the major things I was really happy about. And right off the bat, you can see he can raise his head up just without even moving the actual neck. This guy cannot do that at all because the ball joint that comes out of his neck, the double ball peg, is too far into the neck to allow any kind of leeway for his head to be able to look up. He can look down okay, no problem, but he can't really look up. This was a big downside for me personally with this figure, but you don't have that with this guy here. He can look up. He can't really look down because he's got a big square chin, so it blocks him being able to look down. But because he has an articulated neck with the ball joint going into the base of the chest, you can use that in order to have him look down. So, you know, he can tilt his head. The ball joint allows all the rotation you need. You can go all the way around if you need to. One other major difference between these two guys is their shoulder articulation. They both have butterfly joints, but as you can see, there's more of a deep cut to allow more of a butterfly joint. I mean, his butterfly joint is just way bigger. His back in general is just way bigger than Age of Ultron Hulk. And because he has this extra room here, you can pop his shoulders out. Oh, now this guy, oh, there we go. You can pop his shoulders out and they come out pretty far, pretty good. I mean, they hit the pecs and that kind of stops them from coming out even further. But if you go look in his back, you can see there is gappage there, but you don't have to pull them all the way out like that. You can leave them in a bit. This is just showing how far you can, but I mean, just look how much bigger his back gets and how much bigger it looks when you pull out those butterfly joints to allow for a little bit more range of motion in the shoulder. Now, there is no bicep swivel because they don't want to break up that line and they don't want to break up the sculpt of the upper arm. I kind of wish, like I said, I'm always a huge fan of bicep swivel. I just think it gives you more options for posability and it makes things easier. But it's not, if they don't have it with this guy. Maybe one day if they figure out how to get that irregular line cut and it not be just a straight general shape, but they can maintain that irregular cut and allow for a range of motion to work the way it should. Maybe one day they'll start using more more bicep swivel. But the swivel is all in the shoulder, and as you can see in there, it's a little bit different design with that ball peg that's going into the shoulder. It's shaped differently. I'm not sure why, but it does work. It does serve its purpose. Just a different way of doing it. But he does have the ball swivel going into the arm, and you can get all the rotation you need out of it. You do get rotation within on the inside of the shoulder. The elbows, they are double jointed and they're exactly like the Age of Ultron, but wider because his arms are bigger. And when you bend them, you get slightly more than 90-degree bend with the elbow joint. Hands are on a double ball peg, and Both sets of hands fit on there really snug, quite nicely, no problems there. His upper torso articulation, he does have a diaphragm joint. You can get some tiltage on either from side to side. He doesn't really go back because he's got all that sculpt in the back for his lats and whatnot, and so it doesn't really, he can't really bend back that far because of the sculpt, but he can bend forward quite nicely, so he does get that much of a bend forward. And with the hip swivel, it's a tight hip swivel, and that's fine with me. I'd rather it be tight than loose. Tighter joints are better in the long run anyway. And he can get some bending forward, and he does have this piece that's connected to the hips to cover the gappage, but it's not sculpted. Like, there's no paint apps to it, and it's not there's no skin texture on it either, like there is with the rest of the figure. But it's there, because you're not really supposed to see a whole lot of it anyway. So it's not that big of a deal to me that, it's kind of like a minor detail. If it bothered you that much, I don't know what to tell you. But moving on to the hip and leg articulation, this is where the figure kind of lacks a lot and that's due to the sculpt. He has really big upper thigh joints, and the sculpt is really big, and the opening is very tight and small, and his glutes come down and block movement, so you can't get his legs to go back any because his glutes get in the way. And because these hip joints are so big, these upper thigh joints are so big, you can't really get his legs to come up very far. This is as far as you're going to get them to come up, which is too bad because you can't really get any good squatting poses out of this guy. I've tried to finagle it, but to try and get a little bit more movement out of it, but you really just can't. You can see right here on the part of the upper inner thigh on both sides where it was rubbing up against the ridge on the hips. So because it's just so tight, you're not going to get any movement out of it. He can almost do a full split though, so I mean, you have that going for you. I mean, nobody ever sees the Hulk high kicking anybody, or throwing a high roundhouse kick to anything. So I mean, but it's there. So you also have your thigh swivel. There's not a whole lot of range of motion to that due to the sculpt. His knees are double jointed, but once again, due to the sculpt, because he's such a big bulky figure, this is about as much bend as you're gonna get out of the knee. It's like a 90-degree bend. Well, a bit more than that, but whatever. It's enough to get a bend. It's not enough to get anything insane or crazy. His ankles, they do bend forward. They bend up a little bit, not a whole lot. You do have some ankle rockage. It's not great, it's not horrible, it's just okay to me. And as always, you got the toe point. So you can get some wider stances with him. You'll be able to do punching poses and stuff like that and have him look like he's beating on things or people or enemies or whatever, or getting punked by Thanos. You'll definitely have those. You'll definitely be able to do those pictures, no problem. But yeah, I mean, I kind of wish it's a step in the right direction articulation wise, but because with bigger figures you're gonna lose range of motion, unfortunately, and this is definitely one of those cases. Yeah, you're gonna lose some range of motion with this guy. But that being said, they did make some improvements, and some improvements is better than no improvement. you know, there's other figures in this line that I kind of wish had gotten some improvement. You know, some figures could have definitely benefited with changes in sculpt, some changes in articulation. You know, there's some figures that I feel like that are characters that are representative of how high in popularity, and that made a lot of money and was highly acclaimed worldwide, that didn't get any attention that they needed. And, you know, those figures could have also benefited from, you know, going back to the drawing board and getting some reworking on. And that's too bad. That's a shame. I hope that Figuarts does better next time. But that being said, he does come with a few accessories. He doesn't come with much because, you know, it's the Hulk. He doesn't really need anything. He doesn't use tech. He just beats everything with his hands until they stop moving. And speaking of hands, he comes with an extra set of open flexed hands. They look pretty much like the same exact pose as the Age of Ultron hands. They just added the skin texture, and I think they added the veins. I can't remember if the other ones had veins or not. But, you know, they're there, and they look good. There's no complaints since, you know, they're already based on a mold that already exists. He also comes with Grimace face, his gritting teeth. I'm mad, but not quite angry yet. But I'm really, really PO'd. And this looks good. I like the way the shadows play off of his cheeks, off the sculpt. The scowl and the wrinkles in there, and, you know, the paint apps all work, and everything comes together and looks really nice on this figure. It's a really good shade of green that they chose for this guy too, I might add. Then you have the angry Hulk smash face, and this looks good too. No complaints whatsoever. I like it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Yeah, it does what it needs to do. And so that is going to wrap it up for this review. I really don't have anything else to say. It's a step in the right direction. It's not going to be the be all end all Hulk figure, but it is a decent figure. I won't say it's good. It's going to be good for a lot of other people. The lack of articulation in some vital key areas really takes this figure down a notch for me, a few notches, unfortunately. But like I said, this is going to look good in your collection. It's going to look good next to your other Figuarts, you know, MCU figures. It's going to look good next to your Marvel Legends figures. It's going to look good next to all your figures that you have in your collection in the 1/12 scale. So, yeah, if you're a fan of the Hulk, I would definitely get this guy. You can't go wrong. It's still more posable than most other figures in a lot of other aspects. So, it's still would be a quality buy in my book. But that's gonna pretty much do it. Leave your comments, criticisms, and congratulations, or your angers or doubts or whatever. Leave that all in the comments section. Get at your boy over there. Get at me. Like and subscribe. Hulk smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content. Turn on notifications, because that's what YouTube wants people to do now. So we got to tell people to do that so you can see our videos when we upload them. On Facebook, Agent Omega Man. Just type that in, and I should be the only Agent Omega Man that pops up. And that's going to pretty much do it. I'll catch you guys on the next action figure review. I am Agent O, and I am out. Peace.